Hi, welcome to Blinkity Bloop. I'm Drew D'Amelia.
And I'm Nick Padula.
And this is a podcast where we talk about movies that have come out recently. So if you're all about 2018 movies, I mean, I know it's 2019 now, but, you know, we're doing December of 2018 movies.
We got currently a lot to cover.
Yeah, but if you're still into that, then this is the podcast for you.
Well, I don't know. Maybe some other podcast did this thing better, the whole movie review thing. It's not our chief skill, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and everyone knows what our chief skill is.
Yeah, I think we've emphasized that enough. We don't really need to say it.
No, we don't even have to mention that Blinkity Bloop
is a band.
And we're in it.
Right.
It has great music.
Yeah.
Yeah, people get it.
We don't need to tell you that. No.
You know that we make amazing stuff.
Yeah, and people love us.
As musicians.
Yeah.
Anyway, let us get on with these December movies.
Mm-hmm.
Bzzz.
Oh.
Bzzz.
Oh.
Guess what movie I'm referring to?
Bug's Life?
Wow, no.
Oh.
You fucking idiot. I said December movies.
Oh. Well, that could have come out in December in the 90s.
It's Vice.
Oh.
Yes, so I'm serious. Let's talk about Vice.
Yeah, Vice is a film about the rise to power of the Vice President Dick Cheney.
Yes, and one thing I want to say right off the bat is that I get it. Dick Cheney is not a great guy, it seems, especially from this movie, which doesn't seem to like Dick Cheney all that much.
No, it paints him as quite a nasty little fella.
Yeah, and there's really no way we can talk about this movie without sort of getting into politics, so whoopsie. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. Okay. What I don't get is, how is he important enough to make a whole movie about him? Because he's bad, and they show him doing bad things, but I guess from my perspective, I'm not sure how it's much worse than other politicians. I think what I wanted to see in this movie is something to compare Dick Cheney to. Like, Dick Cheney is really bad in this movie, but let's see politicians that are doing it right. I feel like you had a lot of other politicians that were kind of assholes themselves, maybe not to the degree that Dick Cheney was, but basically all I was seeing was a bunch of idiots and assholes in office, and I didn't have a frame of reference for exactly why Dick Cheney was bad, other than he's responsible for people getting killed.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, he managed to amass a lot more power in a much shorter period of time than any previous vice president did. He pretty much gave himself more power than the president had. And no other vice president did that before. They said in the movie, a vice president is a more symbolic role and they don't have any real power. But Dick Cheney changed that.
Yeah, and I get that. The movie made that clear, and I get that that is incentive enough to make a movie like this. But I wish the movie kind of gave me a point of comparison. Maybe show me other vice presidents and their limited role, and how Dick Cheney was different. Because basically, without that frame of reference, it's just hard to feel how monumental this is. The movie can tell me it's monumental, but I want to feel the impact a lot more.
Yeah.
So I think that's ultimately the issue I had with this movie. And people could argue, well, you just have to know history. You just have to trust what they're saying. It's like, yeah, okay, that's fine. What I'm saying is I want to feel the impact a little bit more.
And there was a lot of exposition. There was a narrator throughout the whole movie, so he could have shown us better clips and better examples of other vice presidents or other frames of reference like good politicians, but they kind of just didn't do anything with that. So your complaint stands.
Yeah. And I really like Adam McKay, who directed this, and he also directed The Big Short. He also directed Anchorman, which I think was great, but very different from these last two movies.
Right.
The Big Short, you could feel why this was monumental, because you were spending time in a world where things were really lavish and people had a lot of money, and then when the crash happened, you just felt how things were going to shit. And I loved that movie, and that's just a good example of how to kind of show a frame of reference. And it was just kind of lacking in this movie, and it wasn't the worst. Like, I still liked the movie a lot.
Yeah.
But I feel like it definitely would have been bolstered by something like that. I don't think anyone's going to say that Christian Bale didn't give a really good performance in this.
No, it's pretty much a given at this point. He gets way into character, he puts on a shit ton of weight, and then he gets awards attention. It's a thing he does.
Yeah, it's more or less the same thing with Rami Malek doing Freddie Mercury this year, where I'm not totally sure what the actual Dick Cheney is like.
Yeah.
I mean, we grew up with him, but I just, we were a little young at the time.
Yeah, and like the movie said, he was always very quiet and reserved, and he never really put his true feelings out there. He was the quiet man, which is what you gotta look out for, apparently.
Yeah, I feel like I can trust that Christian Bale did a good performance on. Regardless, it was a really compelling character to watch.
Yeah.
It was really interesting just how cold and quiet and yet evil and calculating he was. He just looked interesting too. It didn't like I kind of see Christian Bale now that I've seen the movie in that character, but when I first saw the trailer, I did not know it was him until they flashed his name. I'm like, what? And that was amazing. But I was actually more excited to see Sam Rockwell as George W. Bush.
I was a bit disappointed with that because I didn't get to see him as much as I wanted. He was great, but he didn't get enough screen time.
I fucking know. I think I wanted to see that movie instead. I wanted to see Sam Rockwell as George W. Bush. And he had a couple scenes, and he was amazing in them. It just wasn't enough, man. No. It wasn't enough. I'd almost argue he might have shown up Christian Bale.
Maybe. I mean, he didn't... To be fair, his accent in a lot of movies has always had that kind of southern vibe or Midwest vibe. And he took on a role more so than he did in previous roles. But Christian Bale, I think, went above and beyond.
Yeah, but I'm not comparing the amount of effort that was put in. I'm just comparing the overall performance.
Oh, yeah.
Sam Rockwell's performance just excited me a lot more,
Yeah,
honestly.
I see what you mean.
Yeah. Amy Adams was great, too. Steve Carell, I like him a lot. And he was in it for a little bit, but then kind of... It was really mostly a Christian Bale performance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fine. I think the movie has some of the style that The Big Short did.
Yeah.
The problem is it's not consistent.
No.
Like a lot of The Big Short, it was constantly kind of breaking the fourth wall, and it was jumping all over the place, and there were unique ways of embellishing the movie with editing and narration and things like that. And sometimes they'd have jokes that were inserted. There was some of that in this movie, but I feel like it just came and went, and it wasn't consistent.
Yeah, it was kind of abrupt when it did show up.
Yeah, and I'm like, pick one. I'd love it if you went back to that style because I really liked it, but you don't have to. And there are clearly moments where the director is not doing that, and I don't know. There was one moment that was so distracting, and it was a really funny joke. I think
the Shakespeare.
No.
Well, I was just that was also very distracting.
That was also super distracting.
Yeah.
I will talk about the Shakespeare moment first. You can tackle that one.
All right. So, anyways, you see Dick Cheney and his wife in their home life, and they're having a discussion, and the narrator cuts in, and he's like, "We have no idea what they talked about that night. It's not like we're going to make up a Shakespearean monologue or some shit like that." And then they do a fucking Shakespearean scene. And I feel like it'd be funny, but it went on for too long. Like, if it was like a minute or 2 minute scene of like Shakespearean stuff, I'd be like, that's kind of clever, but it just felt like it dragged.
It was also inherently funny. And you had Amy Adams and Christian Bale performing these technically funny lines. I mean, in the context, they weren't... the lines themselves weren't funny, but the context made them funny.
Right.
The problem is this movie is spending so much time making Dick Cheney out to be kind of an evil character that it's a little weird that suddenly you're supposed to laugh at him.
Yeah.
And again, it's just a problem with consistency. You didn't really have many moments like this. I think there were 3 total. At one point, they did a metaphor thing where basically government people were at a restaurant and there were a bunch of evil things on a menu, like seize control of X or do this to Y.
Or like legalize torture.
Yeah, and it was really... Alfred Molina just made a great cameo as the waitress, just casually describing all these horrific crimes, like their dishes. They're just like, we'll take it all. Excellent choice. And that was maybe my favorite part of the movie.
That was really good.
That was it, though. It's a long movie.
It is.
They needed more moments like that.
Or it at least needed to be trimmed a bit, I feel like.
Or it needed to have more of a sense of humor. I mean, there are some funny moments, but it's mostly not too funny.
No.
The one joke that I was talking about, though, that really distracted me was when Dick Cheney's daughter reveals that she's gay.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about now.
And Dick Cheney basically says, "That's fine, honey." And then it basically acts as if that's the end of the movie, and they're doing that thing where they show credits detailing what Dick Cheney's life was like.
Like an epilogue.
Yeah, and the longer it goes on, the more absurd it gets. And you realize that the movie is actually just faking this. And I bought it for a while. I bought that. Wow. Like, I should have known better.
Yeah.
But basically, when they said Dick Cheney never went into politics again, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And I got how fucking clever it was. That the whole joke, it was a great joke, is that they were making it seem like Dick Cheney was actually this good person. And then of course he's not this good person. This is how ridiculous it'd be if he was this good person.
Right.
And the joke really works when you start to buy it and then realize, oh, wait a minute. Like, because it just illuminates how much of an asshole he actually is by showing this fake ending where he's a very amazing person. And the more ridiculous it gets, the more it's just showing how this is dramatically the opposite of what he is. So the better the thing they're saying he did falsely, the more of an asshole he actually looks like. It really worked. And I laughed out loud, which I don't do very often.
No.
I can't remember the last time I did that. There's nothing else in this movie nearly that funny.
Yeah, it was... I feel like there was some dialogue they kind of spiced up. Like, oh, these people wouldn't say this in real life. But, like, it didn't land as good as it might have in The Big Short.
Yeah, and going on that joke, here's what I thought would happen is when they made it clear that, oh, this is a fake ending to this movie, I thought they'd go back and show Dick Cheney's actual reaction to the daughter being gay.
Right.
But then they kind of didn't. And then a couple scenes later, Dick Cheney basically says, hey, listen, George W. Bush, I know that you're campaigning for gay rights to not be a thing, but my daughter's gay. I just draw the line there. Don't want to talk about it.
Right.
And it was really confusing because ultimately I thought what the point of that hilarious joke is that of course Dick Cheney wouldn't support his daughter for being gay.
Right.
Because that's how the whole scene was brought on, essentially. Mm-hmm. But then when you see him a few scenes later more or less supporting his daughter for being gay, or at the very least trying to protect her.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, then what was the point of that giant joke?
Except he does sell her down the river at the end of the movie when his other daughter's running for office.
Yes, he does. But until then, that joke doesn't work.
Yeah.
You can't have a joke saying, see, wouldn't it be so ridiculous if Dick Cheney actually accepted his daughter and then have him accept his daughter for a while?
Yeah.
Like, basically, that entire time you're waiting for the daughter to get sold out, the joke doesn't work.
Yeah.
And by the time the joke can finally work, it's been, what, an hour since that joke happened?
Right.
And who gives a fuck anymore?
Yeah, true.
So, it was too bad. That said, I did like the movie a lot. It needed that frame of reference to really feel important.
It needed the humor, more real humor injected into it, take itself less seriously. It was a very serious subject, and it is important to reveal these things, but he covered a very serious subject in The Big Short, and he managed to keep a significant amount of humor in there. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
One moment I really liked that was just an emotional, dramatic moment, and it involved, of all characters, George W. Bush.
Yeah.
Is you saw him essentially addressing America about attacks that were happening or something. Not the September 11th ones. But the camera pans down, And as it pans down, you go from seeing George W. Bush, who looks composed enough, then you see his foot, and he is nervously tapping his foot. And it just says so much that despite the fact he's composed, he really is uneasy about this decision that was made, which was made by Dick Cheney.
Yep.
And then you wind up seeing a family in a foreign territory of people getting bombed, and you see them just huddling under a table as these horrific explosions happen outside their house. And the camera slowly zooms in to the father's foot, and you see his foot tapping nervously.
Yeah.
And I love that symmetry. But there's one thought I have, and it's like, I don't know if you'd nervously tap your foot like that in that particular situation. It felt a little bit off.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say how your body would behave in that kind of situation, but I don't know.
They had a lot of good contrast, though, of just showing Dick Cheney safe in his office and then horrific, violent explosions of innocent people.
In other countries far away.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm still rooting for Adam McKay.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the movie enough to watch it probably a couple more times. I loved The Big Short, though, and this doesn't do it for me the way The Big Short did.
No, it doesn't. Should we talk about Jesse Plemons?
Sure. I mean, it was fine. Basically, there was this twist that the narrator the whole time wound up being Dick Cheney's heart donor.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you occasionally will see him narrating on screen. And at one point, right in the middle of his narration, he just gets hit by a fucking truck violently. And then, oh, he's the heart donor. That's where the heart comes from.
And on top of that, he was a heart donor serving in a war that Dick Cheney helped start.
Yes. There's definitely something powerful about that. And then Dick Cheney basically called it his new heart instead of, you know, a heart donor's heart.
Yeah.
And I love it. You see Jesse Plemons' corpse who's talking just because it's that kind of movie. And what was his line? He's like, I know I'm a corpse, but that still makes me feel pretty shitty.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. Like, wow. But Vice was good.
Mm-hmm.
Good time.
Good.
But, you know, all right, we'll talk about Bumblebee.
All right, Bumblebee.
No, everyone's really been waiting for me to talk about Bumblebee.
They have?
I don't know. Well, I made those buzzing noises.
Oh, that's true.
People are getting real excited for an insect-based title.
Okay.
So, I'm not super familiar with the Transformers movies. I saw number 2 and number 5.
Yep.
And they were awful. Now, we saw Transformers 2 when we were quite young.
Yeah, I remember liking the first movie a lot, and I'm like, well, the second movie is going to be great, so let me grab my bud Drew here, and we'll enjoy it together. And I was infuriatingly mad at how bad it was, because I was like, I'm going to show Drew this great movie and introduce him to something fun. And Drew was just like, I feel like entertained by my misery.
I remember shitting on it a lot myself, though.
And I tried to defend it, I think, even though I knew it was bad.
Yeah, I think you're like kind of in denial.
I was.
But I didn't. I never saw the first Transformers, so I didn't have a reason to be in denial.
Yeah.
And I saw the 5th one, and wow, that was bad. And listen, it would take more thought than it might be worth to truly dissect why the Transformers movies fail the way that they do fail. But essentially, the way I can boil it down is that you don't care about any of the characters. The action is complete chaos. It's just so hard to follow anything that you leave the movie and you're not sure what the fuck happened. And so we've had those Transformers movies for a long time. And it has been a real staple of criticism in the popular culture to just shit all over Michael Bay.
Right.
Because he made shitty Transformers movies. Mm-hmm. Which is to imply that people want good Transformers movies, right?
Yeah, you'd assume so.
And so with Bumblebee, we finally have a very good Transformers movie. It is competent in all the ways that the other Transformers movies aren't. And from what I understand, it's basically just rebooting the Transformers.
Okay.
Which feels a little soon to do that, but you know, I don't give a fuck because they did a great job.
Did Michael Bay go anywhere near this movie?
He produced it.
Okay.
Which is a little surprising, honestly, but
yeah,
it turned out great.
Okay.
And you'd think that people would be real excited for this, but, I think people are more just excited to shit on something that was bad, and maybe they never actually wanted a good Transformers.
I mean, that's not entirely true. People loved the Transformers cartoon in the 80s, so they were hoping for a quality nostalgia trip, and they never really got it. And by the time Bumblebee came out, I think people kind of gave up on getting a good Transformers movie.
Yeah, that is an important context to give, because for me, Transformers was really nothing more than the live-action movies. I mean, maybe I can vaguely remember a time before the live-action movies. Like, they're making a live-action Transformers, hey! But yeah, for most of my life that I can remember, it's just been Michael Bay Transformers movies. Right. But yeah, I guess looking at the franchise as a whole, yeah, Michael Bay's just a stain on what is overall a broader franchise that has more potential, I guess.
It does.
Not that I've ever been really that into the Transformers, but I don't know. I don't know that I wanted a good live-action Transformers movie. I don't think it was ever something I was expecting.
No.
And when I first heard they were going to make a new spin-off movie of Transformers called Bumblebee, I thought, wow, that sounds fantastically dumb.
Yeah.
And that was real fucking wrong. I was about to say it's not amazing, but it almost is.
Oh.
I think what makes it amazing, though, is that it's not a shitty movie. But it is a really solid movie, though. It has a character that you're really rooting for. This has an emotional center, and it has emotional moments, which is just shocking to me because I feel like that's never happened in the Transformers movies before.
No.
It has humor. It has heart. The story is very simple and easy to follow. The action shots are very easy to follow, and they're exciting, but they're concise, and they're specific. And everything comes together really well. The pacing is done very nicely. It's just a very solid Transformers movie. And it's kind of astonishing. I think that's what gives the movie a lot of its punch, is that all the shitty Michael Bay movies before it actually helped to elevate Bumblebee even more. If this was the first live-action Transformers movie, I'd think, hey, that was an excellent movie. And that'd be that. There's not much I would even complain about at all. I don't think I can think of anything I would complain about.
Oh, wow.
Like, the worst I can say about this movie is that it wasn't remarkable enough.
Okay.
Like, it wasn't a super outstanding movie. That's a dumb criticism.
Especially for a Hasbro product.
Yeah. It's great. Even John Cena was a likable character.
Wow.
I mean, we all know he was super likable after that amazing movie Ferdinand, of course. But I mean, there was even genuine tension, too. And I know the other Transformers movie, I think this one was PG-13, too, I think, though. Honestly, it could have been PG. Like, if it wanted to be, it really could have been, because not too much about this feels like it was PG-13. It mostly follows kids and kid problems. But they had some pretty violent moments. Basically, they would kill humans sometimes and they just explode into water.
Whoa.
It'd be horrifying, but horrifying in a way that's like kind of okay for kids, I guess, but it's still kind of horrifying.
Yeah.
But I liked that because it added stakes. It added like, oh shit, these bad guys can really fuck up this planet. I don't know why I was surprised to see that. I guess because it felt like it was a kid's movie. For the most part, nothing about it felt too PG-13. So it just felt bold for them to just show violence like that. But then again, there was so much violence in the other Transformers movies that it wasn't technically bold of them to do that. But I guess the way in which it was done was bold. By having a story where the violence really feels violent, then it's great violence. Yeah. There were some questionable moments here and there, like, the kids broke into a government facility, and you're like, oh, how did that happen? That felt a little too convenient, but I'm willing to wave this shit away. At a certain point, the movie vaguely operates on a just kind of let things happen logic. Like, things are simple enough in this movie where they don't waste time trying to get too detailed about how this character got from one scene to the other or anything like that. They're just kind of like, yeah, this is a nice basic story. Sometimes just let things happen. Is that cool? Because this is, a robots from space kind of movie. And you're willing to accept that because the movie is competent enough. And yeah, it kind of fits with the style too. It is a very fun, vaguely whimsical movie, so having things break logic a little bit kind of fits. It was great. The more I talk about it, I'm like, wow, this is great. But it's so shocking. I'm like ready to see more Transformers movies.
Weird.
What happened?
I wonder if they do like an Optimus Prime one. I'd be kind of interested in a good Optimus Prime movie.
They could do an Avengers thing. They can easily make a cinematic universe out of this where eventually all the Transformers get together in a big movie, and it's so weird that I'm like, wow, that'd be fun. What?
What's happening?
I've transformed. When you emotionally transform, you just... Oh, that's horrifying.
I'm a truck now.
Nick, that was a great laugh we just had. Mm-hmm. It was really solid.
Yeah.
But I think we should talk about a movie that it will give you many more great laughs.
Oh boy, I do love to laugh.
I think you know what I'm talking about. Think about really, really funny movies from December of 2018, and what do you think? What's the number one funny movie you think of?
I'd say Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That had me laughing the most.
Fuck off.
Oh.
Holmes and Watson.
Oh.
Holmes and Watson was so funny.
It was?
It's got, I think, a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes. But you just shouldn't listen to the critics sometimes. Honestly, this is really one of the most impressive movies I've seen this year.
Wow.
Oh, wait, I'm lying.
Oh. You really had me going there.
Listen, I will admit I was kind of excited for this movie. Now, I'm not like a big fan of Step Brothers necessarily, but I do think Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly are immensely talented comedians.
They're a good combo, usually.
Yeah, I don't actually know that I've seen them combined in a way that I really like yet. Like Talladega Nights I did see, and I remember thinking it was okay, and they might have done a couple other movies, but I don't know. I felt there was a lot of potential for them to come together and do a parody of Sherlock Holmes. I don't know why I thought that, but I was excited for it. And I guess because Sherlock Holmes is usually done in a very serious way.
Yeah.
With maybe some light humor. And I like the idea of seeing it parodied. And I'm thinking, well, these are two great comedians, and I feel like they fit being cast as Holmes and Watson.
They do.
I can see them looking that part.
Yeah.
And so I was excited. And I had a friend tell me that he saw the poster and immediately had bad vibes about this movie because I think the tagline was Homies.
Yeah, and I think Watson was doing a W symbol for West Side, which is like a street symbol.
It wasn't... Will Ferrell was doing an H, I think.
Yeah.
So that did not bode well.
No.
I still believed in the movie, though.
Okay.
And it was fucking horrendous. Listen, it started off being just annoying at how stupid it was. Because essentially, it was a chaotic mess of throwing out a bunch of different kind of jokes that did not blend together at all. And they were also not particularly funny in the first place. They just weren't thought out jokes. Like the beginning, Holmes needs to get to a trial, but he's trying to kill a mosquito, and then a bunch of bees get out. I'm like, oh no, we gotta stop the bees. Here, Watson, let me put this helmet on your head while bees are all over your face. And the bees are all over his face. Holmes goes, wait, that didn't help at all. The bees are on your face. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Why were there even bees in your office in the first place? Like, it's just so marvelously dumb.
Yeah.
But not in a funny way. Just because there's an art to being dumb. Like, I feel like good dumb humor is actually smart.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is a good example, I feel like.
Sure, yeah. With this, it was just dumb. And it was annoying me for a while. Just this hodgepodge of unfunny jokes that did not belong together. One thing that they did is, you remember the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movies?
Yeah.
Where they do this thing, and I kind of liked it. It felt new for Sherlock Holmes at the time. Where for a split second, they'd kind of just show Sherlock Holmes' thought process, and they sort of illustrate it with some graphics.
Yeah, and he calculates basically the probability of certain decisions playing out.
I thought that was really cool. And then they do that in this movie. They do it twice at least. And it only occurred to me the second time that they were trying to parody it. Because honestly, the first time there wasn't even a joke. They just did it.
Yeah.
And I think it was supposed to be, hey, get it? Because that was in the other Sherlock Holmes movie. And I'm like, that's not a joke. That's a reference. Is that it?
Also, it's been years since even the sequel came out, so I don't even remember hardly the Sherlock Holmes movies.
And here's the problem. This was the first 10 minutes of the movie. So you don't know yet that this isn't the way the movie's going to be. So as far as you know, that's just going to be a regular thing. They just borrow the thing from the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock movies and have Holmes break down his thought process with graphics in slow motion. But then, no, it's supposed to be a parody. Because then it happens a second time, and there's basically, he calculates everything, but then one thing goes wrong. Oh, all his calculations are wasted.
Yeah.
That's another inherent problem, is that Will Ferrell is trying to play Sherlock Holmes as a buffoon, but he's supposed to be a genius.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't work.
No.
Smart writers could have made something incredibly interesting out of this. Whoops. But, wow, it kept getting worse and more annoying. At one point, they're trying to cut a cake, and clearly there's a corpse in there, but they just keep stabbing it and going, oh, is this raspberry jam? And I'm like, this is very disturbing all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? Where did this come from? One thing that they kept doing that was so annoying is that, again, I was thinking that this was just going to be a parody of Sherlock Holmes, right?
Yeah.
But instead, Sherlock Holmes took place, I don't know, back when Sherlock Holmes took place.
Yep.
That's when this movie takes place, too. A lot of the jokes were kind of taking modern things and showing what they'd be like back then.
Oh.
The best example I can think of is they just took a really old camera and went, let's take a self-photograph. And I'm thinking, listen, I get it. I get what you're doing. But this isn't a movie where we're supposed to be paying attention to the fact that these are old times. That's what these jokes are doing, is drawing attention to the setting. That's just distracting us from the fact that this is a movie about Holmes and Watson.
Yeah, the setting should establish itself. You shouldn't establish the setting through jokes. That just seems lazy.
Listen, if it was a movie that was all about this time period and not specifically about Sherlock Holmes, then fine.
Sure.
Okay. But it was just distracting. Basically, I get it. Yeah, it's the old times. Why do we care? Make a joke about Holmes and Watson. Don't make a joke about... Isn't it crazy how things are old? Like, what the fuck? I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And there were other instances of this that I've blissfully forgotten.
Thankful.
Yeah, the worst one was definitely the scene where they're trying to take a selfie with the Queen. And basically that's when things started to stop being annoying and become fascinating at how bad they were. Because for a while I'm thinking, this is easily going to be one of the worst movies I've seen this year. And the thing is, for me, the worst movies I've seen are movies that just annoy me or bore me and don't entertain me at all.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, this got so bad that it began to become entertaining. Given it is still one of the shittiest movies, but it started to become an entertaining shitty movie. I'm like, thank goodness. Now we got something here. Because that was such a weird fucking scene where basically they're trying to take a picture with the Queen then they accidentally bonk her on the head. They're like, she's dead. And they go through this really stupid routine of just, oh, we'll be out there in a minute, guards. And I'm like, what the fuck? Just stop this. And then the guards come in and the queen inexplicably comes back to life. And I'm like, was she not dead at all? Why did they think she was dead? Isn't Watson a doctor?
He is.
And he proclaimed her dead. Do they have any explanation for why Watson was wrong? No. And then the queen, having been struck in the head, just comes to and goes, can I get a copy of that self-photograph? As if she had no problem with any of the events that just happened. And I'm like, why didn't you have a problem with any of the events that just happened?
Maybe bonking her on the head made her forget.
Maybe. But I feel like she might have been reminded at a certain point.
Maybe.
Because here's the thing. She remembered that there was a self-photograph being taken.
Yep.
So what the fuck? Oh, and can I say that they made such an embarrassing attempt at political commentary in this?
Uh-oh.
They more or less were saying, we never elect a buffoon for a president in London like it would maybe happen in America. It was done slightly better than that, just in terms of articulating it, and I got what they were trying to do, but here are 2 reasons it didn't work. Reason number 1, it was another totally different kind of joke that just didn't fit with any of the other jokes. Suddenly we just have political commentary, and I'm like, what the fuck? But number 2, you can't try to make bold political statements in a movie where you're being this lazy, because it's just going to fucking bolster the group of people that you're trying to make fun of.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? Like, if you actually want to make a point, you have to take the rest of your movie seriously.
Yeah.
And so it was cringeworthy hearing them just talking about modern America with Trump and everything. I'm like...
Did they really get into it, or was it just a throwaway line?
Well, at one point, they literally have Sherlock Holmes wearing a Make London Great Again hat. Yeah. Yeah, welcome to my fucking world.
Jesus Christ.
It's so painfully stupid.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, it really is embarrassing, but it keeps going. It persists. And listen, it starts off being annoying that they're just throwing all this shit at you and it's all random and it doesn't make sense. But eventually there's this marvelous effect that it has where there's so much random shit going on. They just kind of drop your jaw and wonder, wow, what the fuck is even happening? Because you got 3 random things happening, you're annoyed. 5, you're pretty annoyed. When it gets to 15, you're like, what the fuck? Like, there's a scene where Sherlock Holmes goes to visit his brother. And the brother's there for one scene. The brother's played by Hugh Grant. I feel like this is a reference to Hugh Grant playing Sherlock Holmes or some shit.
I don't know.
But I don't fucking get it at all. It's not really explained to me. And then the brother never shows up again.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. And then, basically, Holmes just suddenly decides that Watson must be the murderer that they're looking for. Because Holmes says, it's always the person you least suspect. So I accuse you, Watson. I'm like, oh, but what? But then Holmes feels guilty about it, and he starts to have feelings. And let me point out that there is a whole opening scene where you see Holmes as a kid, and he gets viciously bullied. And then he decides, I'm not going to have feelings anymore. And you literally see a tear that rolled down his face. He sucks it back up into his eye.
Jesus Christ.
And at the very least, this is the opening scene, so you're giving the movie some credit. Like, okay, maybe they're establishing that this is the kind of movie where weird, zany things like that happen. There's nothing else like that in this movie where someone just sucks a tear back up into their eye. And so then Holmes cries again, and I guess this was a movie about how Holmes just needed to learn how to feel or some shit, and so he sings a musical number. Yeah, a fucking musical number happens. Like, I don't give a fucking shit about Holmes. You're trying to A, tell me, oh, look, he finally feels, isn't that great? And then B, you're embellishing it with a musical number by Alan Menken. What the fuck?
Wait, Alan Menken did an original song?
Yes, he did.
Oh my god, Alan, why?
Listen, Alan has done a lot of shit that people probably don't know about that's not terribly good.
Yeah, I'm sure, but he's done a good amount of good.
He has, and it's not like the song was awful, but the movie it was in was awful. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Is that it? Is that the joke that he's singing? Because it wasn't a particularly funny joke. Is that it? Like, look, these characters are singing now. Yeah, it's like a musical. Yeah, but they weren't singing before. Yeah, that's like all your other jokes. It's just fucking lazy. Is it now supposed to be endearing that you're doing something random? Because it's been annoying otherwise. So it keeps going on. And here's the thing. Did you know that Ray Fiennes was in this?
I assume he'd play Moriarty.
Yes.
He seems like a Moriarty.
And so you'd think that he would be the main villain, right?
Yeah.
He's not.
Oh.
Here's the thing. There's a maid played by Kelly MacDonald.
Okay.
That's her name, right? Lady from Brave. And she winds up being a villain in a twist. But here's the thing. You expect with twists that they have a reveal where at least a character says, like, this person is the villain, or this person steps out of the shadows in a compromising situation.
Right.
This movie is so bad that basically they just cut to a scene and she is the villain now. There's literally no transition into it. It's like the movie thought that there was a scene earlier where they said that she was the villain. But you get fucking whiplash. It's like, wait, what the fuck? She's just bad now?
They had no hints, I assume, dropped throughout?
No.
Okay, of course not.
And I'm like, what the fuck? You have Ray Fiennes as Moriarty, which I will give some credit. He really looks like a badass Moriarty.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would see him as Moriarty in an actual Sherlock Holmes movie.
Yeah.
He basically says nothing and does nothing. He just sits there and looks like he would make an excellent Moriarty.
What a waste.
But not only is he not the villain, but you don't even give me a decent transition into this twist villain? What the fuck? And you're literally not going to believe this because I almost didn't believe this.
Okay.
But there's a climax where basically the queen is on a ship. And Sherlock Holmes has to stop this bomb that was planted on the ship from going off. The ship is the Titanic. Do you know how just embarrassingly distracting that is? Right? It just keeps going. Like,
so wait, does he save the Titanic?
This is before the Titanic took off.
So it still sinks.
Yes.
Oh my god.
So literally, listen, this is supposed to be the big, heroic, triumphant moment taking place on a ship where you know everyone will die anyway. That could be a brilliant joke in a better movie.
It could be.
But in this, it's clearly just a fucking accident and very distracting.
Yeah.
Because listen, they're trying to go, I'm pretty sure, for a big finish. Like a big movie climax. Everything about the way they're shooting it makes it seem like, yeah, we're really trying here. If the point was futility, if they were going for sort of an anticlimax, they had a lot of potential there. There was something inherently genius about saving the day on the Titanic when you know it's going to be blown up.
Yeah.
Well, not blown up, but yeah, people aren't going to make it out okay.
Yeah.
But no, it's just fucking distracting. And they even have a joke after the day is saved where Holmes goes, yes, I want everyone to think of Watson when you think of the Titanic. And just hammering in. Wasn't this all completely pointless?
Yeah.
The more he keeps making the joke about, it's funny because the Titanic is going to sink, the more you realize how pointless this finale was because none of it mattered. And do you know how the bomb was deactivated?
How?
Well, basically, Holmes was trying to do that thing where he thinks things out.
Yeah.
And you really get to see the graphic details, but his emotions were distracting him. And so what I thought was going to happen is that Watson would join in and take over. That makes sense. Sure. And that's even when Holmes said, Watson, I need your help. I'm too emotional to do this. What I thought was going to happen is either Watson was going to deal with the thing, or Watson would try to deal with the thing, and realized that he didn't really have the intellect needed. And so they needed to sort of combine forces and work together, which would make perfect sense. It's Holmes and Watson. That's sort of what they've been building up to. All right, yeah. And then Watson is having trouble putting together the mathematics and probabilities required and the deductions required for how to get rid of this bomb. So I'm thinking, okay, they're about to transition into the two of them have to work together. Instead, this is what happens. Watson goes on a violent rampage where he, shoves two people. He just grabs the bomb and throws it out the window, and that's it. It was that fucking easy. I'm like, was any deduction even necessary if all you had to do is just run up, shove a couple guys, and throw the bomb out the window? What the fuck?
Wow.
And so after that, they leave the Titanic, and then Will Ferrell says, look, it's Billy Zane, he's the actor from Titanic, right?
Yeah, he was in it.
He just says Billy Zane, the actor's name,
fuck?
and it is Billy Zane, and he's entering the Titanic, but he does not look anything like his character from the Titanic.
Because he's older now.
He just has a full beard. They're not even trying. What the fuck does this mean? What the hell is happening?
Jesus Christ. That's astonishing.
Right? Right? It's kind of amazing. Listen, I cannot believe that I'm saying this, but Sherlock Gnomes was the better adaptation of a Sherlock Holmes property. By far. Sherlock Gnomes did this so much better. How did that happen? And listen, I have infamously praised Sherlock Gnomes. I thought it was genuinely pretty decent.
Yeah.
And it more or less did a similar thing with Holmes and Watson, where it showed Watson being in the shadow of Holmes and being upset about it. And I can't believe I'm saying these words. It was so much more compelling in Sherlock Gnomes, the way that played out. In this movie, they were setting that up and did fucking nothing at all with it. And Sherlock Gnomes, it paid off. It paid off. They resolved the arc very well. Listen, even for people that thought Sherlock Gnomes was a piece of shit, they still have to admit, in a side-by-side comparison, yeah, that's a better movie. Significantly.
Sounds like it, without a doubt.
Though, honestly, in terms of entertainment value, it's tough to say. I still might prefer Sherlock Gnomes because there was something so weird about Sherlock Gnomes.
It's very unique.
Yeah, but then again, there is also something so weird about Holmes and Watson. It is tough to decide. But you know what? I think it'd make a great movie marathon.
Right next to the Benedict Cumberbatch series and the Robert Downey Jr. movies.
I heard the Sherlock series got pretty stupid as it went on.
All right, well.
I didn't see too much of it, but I also think people are divided on that or whatever. I don't know. I don't even know if that series is still going on with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Nah, I don't care.
But whatever.
Yeah.
Holmes and Watson was definitely not what I thought it would be, but it's kind of amazing. It's just so bad. And I kind of loved it a little bit.
That's great.
Yeah. But Nick, believe it or not, we actually have another Sherlock Holmes adaptation to talk about.
Wow, 2 in 1 year. That's pretty crazy.
No, 2 in 1 month. 3 in 1 year.
Oh, shit.
Oh, wait a minute. No, I misread that. It's Aquaman.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
How do you mistake that for Sherlock Holmes?
You know, in hindsight, I'm really not sure how I did.
Huh.
I can say this, though. I have little to no familiarity with Aquaman. But, as you know, you've known me a long time.
I have.
And you'll know that when I was very young, I was mocking him in wondrous ways.
You were. You really... I mean, to be fair, back in the day, he was a very easily mockable character.
Yeah, and I don't know, I feel like he's mocked even more now than he was before. I could be totally wrong about that, though. All I'm saying is that I was mocking him back then because I felt, yes, he's very easy to mock. That said, I was not necessarily unwilling to support an Aquaman live-action movie from DC. Now listen, DC fucks a lot of shit up. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's inherently stupid to try to make an Aquaman movie. It's a little weird, but so is Ant-Man.
Yeah.
I feel like there's potential here. They just have to make sure that they do things right, the way the Marvel does.
Which they haven't really done except for Wonder Woman.
Yeah, which I didn't even like that much.
It was just the closest thing to great that DC has gotten.
Exactly.
Since the Christopher Nolan movies.
Aquaman is probably second closest.
Okay.
That is really not saying a lot at all, though.
Yeah.
Like, it is a distant second, probably.
Okay.
It's mostly just a stupid movie, and there is so much that I can get into, and I'll do my best to tackle as much as I can.
Okay.
Let me just tell you the plot, is that basically Aquaman goes to a bunch of places so he can eventually get a trident and stop his evil brother from taking over the world.
So he didn't have a trident to start with?
He had a trident, but it wasn't the magic trident. He needed the real magic trident.
Okay.
And it doesn't amount to much more than that. They go to a place to get a clue about where to get the trident. And then they get that clue, which leads them to another place, which gives them another clue. And then eventually he goes to get the trident. And there's this monster, voiced by Julie Andrews, of course.
Wait, really?
Yes, this horrific giant monster is voiced by Julie Andrews.
That's really hard to imagine.
Works a lot better than you'd think.
Okay.
And Aquaman goes, I am fighting for the right reasons because my people need me. And so then he gets the trident because he did it right.
Oh, so he didn't actually have to fight the thing?
No, not at all. He just had to feel the right thing in his heart.
Oh.
Just a little underwhelming.
Yes.
And then he emerges. Not only does he have the trident, but he suddenly has his Aquaman suit on.
Oh.
And nobody knows why, but you just kind of accept it. It's like, okay.
All right.
That's fine.
Because, yeah, I think in Justice League and Batman v Superman, he was just mostly shirtless.
Yeah, he was, which was fine.
Yeah.
But I think people were complaining that he didn't look like Aquaman's. Okay, we'll put him in the suit, okay?
I mean, they might as well just make him blonde-haired and blue-eyed again if they're going to give him all this old 1950s shit.
Honestly, he still dramatically does not look like the other Aquaman.
Okay.
So it doesn't work. I feel like Aquaman is a little pudgy, I think. I was having this argument with one of my friends. I feel like Aquaman's a little thick. Like,
I don't know. He's always just seemed average.
Like, I feel like Matthew Broderick could pull off being Aquaman.
Come to me, my fish companions.
For real, though, I seriously think that could be some of the best casting of Matthew Broderick of all time.
You mean like present-day middle-aged Matthew Broderick?
I genuinely think Matthew Broderick as Aquaman could be just fantastic.
Okay.
Not this version of Aquaman, mind you. I mean the version everyone is actually thinking about.
Yeah, the obnoxious, easily, made fun of one.
Yes. And on that, yes, it's easy to make fun of Aquaman and the fish world and whatever, so you have to be very careful about how you're going to introduce us to this movie. And honestly, what they should have done is very carefully laid out exactly what the world is right from the beginning. Gradually introduced you to it, got you acclimated to it. Instead, what they did is they waited until 3 or 4 scenes later, maybe even more, to finally show the underwater world. And they just kind of went there. They didn't try to acclimate you to it at all. They just suddenly showed it. They did it in a way where I almost think, did they already introduce this in another movie or something? And I'm just supposed to know this is an underwater world? I know it showed up in Justice League.
Yeah.
But even if it did, you should still reintroduce people just in case they forgot about Justice League, because I think a lot of people want to.
Yeah.
So they did not. And all of a sudden you just see people riding seahorses and talking funny underwater and swimming around, and some people are riding like crabs or some shit. And I'm like, what the fuck is all this? There's just a bunch of these underwater statues, and they did such a bad job establishing this world. Like, listen, I was able to be okay with it. I'm willing to accept it. But for people that are coming into this ready to mock it, you had to be careful, and you were the opposite of careful. Just, oh, here it is. Like, no, you really need to be gently persuaded into taking someone riding a seahorse seriously.
Right.
Whoops. Also, this introduced one of my favorite things that happened in this movie.
Okay.
Giant explosions interrupting dialogue scenes.
Did that happen a lot?
That happened in this scene.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. Then it happened again, like maybe 20 minutes later. And I'm like, what the fuck? They need to stop doing that. When it happened the third time,
Jesus.
I fucking lost my shit. Like, how do you... It was stupid as fuck the first time. Okay, listen, I'm willing to accept it maybe once. It really didn't work in that scene because you're just spending the whole time watching these people talking. I'm trying to figure this out. What the fuck is going on with this water world? Could you have maybe made this the opening scene or something? Because I'm getting whiplash here. And there's just a giant fucking explosion. Like, oh, fuck. Okay. All right, whatever. So it's kind of ridiculous. And then it happens a second time, and you're thinking, stop doing this. Like, it was maybe surprising the first time, but the second time it just feels dumb. Then by the third time, like, you have, either you know what you're doing or you're incredibly incompetent. It's the second one. It was so stupid. And I loved it.
Yeah.
But by far, what was probably my favorite explosion scene is Aquaman and the girl that he's traveling with the whole time. They share a kiss. It's this big sweeping 360 shot of them kissing. It's supposed to be really romantic. Here's the thing. This is happening while there's a giant undersea war going on.
Oh.
And people are clearly dying.
Yeah.
And you see a bunch of explosions. And the thing is, the explosions, the way they shoot it, it's supposed to be kind of romantic. Like, basically, it's supposed to represent visually, whether they intended it or not, the explosive love that they have. That is the feeling you're getting.
Right.
But you already have so many bad memories of explosions from this movie because you're just thinking of all the explosions that interrupted tender moments before. And more immediately, you're thinking about all the fucking people that are dying from those explosions that you're seeing. And I dropped my jaw. Like, are you fucking serious right now? You're trying to make this big kiss romantic with these explosions? Wow. It was great. And also, that final fight was stupid, too, because let me tell you what it should have been. Basically, this evil brother wanted to go take his undersea army up to Earth, and he wanted to get revenge on Earth. You know why?
Why?
Because Earth did a lot of pollution to the ocean.
Okay.
This is a very compelling argument because it is completely true.
Yeah.
And Aquaman basically knows this. He says, yeah, Earth kind of sucks, but there are some good people here. And it'd be one thing if that was a throwaway line or something, but that's literally the only argument against the evil brother that we get. So evil brother is going, there's pollution and it's horrifying. And Aquaman goes, there are some good people. And I thought they'd go into it a little bit more, and they never do.
Oh.
And I'm like, I don't think that's enough of an excuse to pollute the ocean that much.
I think I'm siding with the evil brother on this one.
Exactly. But what should have happened is he just goes right up. And we gotta stop him before he gets the army onto Earth. Or maybe he gets the army onto Earth, and then you have to stop him, except I don't know how they're gonna get like underwater creatures like a seahorse onto Earth.
Yeah.
That very much confused me.
That's always been a problem with Aquaman fighting on land.
Yeah, it feels a little stupid, but maybe they just make a big tidal wave. That happened earlier, so
Okay.
sure, tsunamis for everyone.
Ooh.
But here's what happened instead. They wrote in this thing in the plot where the evil brother, in order to be able to fight on land, he had to get the approval of all the undersea kingdoms. But one kingdom didn't want to give approval, and so he decided, all right, we're going to defeat that kingdom, and then we'll be able to go to the land. And so this big epic battle is the battle of trying to defeat that kingdom. And I'm like, you're like an entire battle away from even getting to what I thought was going to be the climax of this movie. but they never even get there.
Oh.
I'm like, what the fuck? So the final battle feels like the second to last battle. How did you fuck that up? Just write that out. Just make it so you're trying to get to the surface and then Aquaman has to stop you with his army or whatever.
Yeah, makes sense.
I can't believe it. I can't believe how stupid that was. Also, oh man, Willem Dafoe was in this.
Oh.
He was fine, I guess. I guess part of me thinks that it's a little weird seeing him in a swimming setting or in swim trunks and stuff, but I think he did that in Life Aquatic. So
was he like a CGI creature, or was he just like himself?
No, he was like a human.
Oh, okay.
Basically, Aquaman was born from a human dad and an Atlantis lady or something like that.
Atlantean, actually.
Oh, okay, sorry. And so then the Atlantean, played by Nicole Kidman, let me just quickly mention, so while she's on Earth for the first time, she sees a fish in a fish tank, and I'm thinking, okay, she's going to talk to the fish because, you know, they really respect fish and stuff undersea.
Right.
She eats the fish.
Oh.
And I'm like, wait, what? I thought you guys, like, were friends with the... But then again, I'm thinking, well, they gotta eat something.
Yeah, true.
But regardless, it was fucking confusing.
That is weird.
But basically, alright, so the queen is who that Atlantean is, winds up having to go back to Atlantis. And then all of a sudden, Willem Dafoe is seen in flashbacks teaching this kid the ways of Atlantis. And maybe they very briefly explain this, but I'm just sitting there thinking, what the fuck? Like, how did this happen? How did they even know that there was a sun on Earth at all? Like,
right.
What the fuck? And then they did this wonderful thing during some of these flashbacks where you'd have Aquaman and the lady, Amber Heard, and they would be talking in the present day. And these were technically cool transitions, but basically the way they moved the camera, suddenly it was a young Aquaman and Willem Dafoe in Amber Heard's place.
Oh.
Which was cool, the way they transitioned into the flashback. But also what it was basically doing is transforming Willem Dafoe into a beautiful woman. And it was very weird. I'm like, oh, what the fuck just happened there?
And it sounds like it's implying there's a romantic relationship between Willem Dafoe and Aquaman.
Yes, it does. Also, they blazed the fuck through the history of what happened to Atlantis so quickly. It was remarkably stupid. Basically, Willem Dafoe was narrating, I think. Like, once upon a time, there were 7 kingdoms and they were on land, but then someone hit a button too hard and everything blew up. Okay. And it was just a miserable explosion where all the kingdoms blow up. But then he says, but then we adapted underwater. Like, what? How? I thought a lot of you died. I thought everyone died. But I guess they adapted. And some of us became humans, and some of us became scary monsters. And this is what you need to slow down on. And this happened, I'm pretty sure, after the scene where they, first showed the underwater world. So it was exceptionally confusing. I could be wrong on that, but regardless, it was all entirely rushed.
Yeah, sounds it.
At the very least, though, they kept showing this shit in flashbacks to the point where it was almost annoying. I'm like, okay, you can stop with these flashbacks now. They're getting kind of extraneous and confusing. But then at one point, Aquaman's basically wondering, what's going on with my mom? Where's my mom? And Willem Dafoe, the camera just slowly zooms in, and he just explains in a few sentences, your mom, she was forced into exile, and she's never been seen from again. She's probably dead. And I couldn't believe that they picked that important moment of all the moments that they could have shown a flashback. It would be great there. Now, ultimately, the reason they could not show a flashback is because the mom was actually alive. So they couldn't, falsify a flashback or anything like that.
Right.
But the impact it had is that the most important thing that should have been shown that Willem Dafoe was talking about, they just fucking didn't show it at all. Like, okay, great. And then the actor playing young Aquaman is so fucking bad. It's amazing. His reaction, what? You're saying she was exiled? No! It's so bad. It's amazing. But... yeah, whatever. Willem Dafoe's in this, and it's fine. And also, there's some wacky comedy music at a certain point.
Oh.
Which is really distracting, because I guess at a certain point they decide, isn't this funny how Aquaman and Amber Heard are just kind of chilling on Earth? It's like fish out of water. And literally the music just feels like it's from a shitty sitcom all of a sudden, and I'm like... oh, okay, that's fine, I guess. Oh, there was also this other bad guy.
I think I know who you're talking about, Black Manta, who I kind of remember liking the costume design of.
I'm not terribly familiar with him, but he starts off in the beginning where Aquaman basically lets his dad die. Mm-hmm. The dad was trying to kill Aquaman. The dad killed a lot of other people because the dad was a bad guy. And so the son is going, Aquaman, save him! And Aquaman goes, no mercy for people that kill other people. And it's such a fucking stupid scene. Mm-hmm. Because the dad basically pops open a grenade implying, son, don't save me, you have to get out of here. And the son is really upset. But then he delivers his line in such a stupid way, damn you! And I'm like, is that the last thing you want to say to your dad? And apparently it is. And then he goes to run away, but he's in this ship that is half filled with water. So you know how stupid it looks when you are running through water? That's what happened. He's like waddling the fuck out of there dramatically. Like, what the fuck is happening? And so he's kind of a bad guy. The evil brother was supposed to be the main bad guy, but then the evil brother wants to work with this guy on land. I don't know why he's outsourcing anything to this guy, but whatever. And he basically gives this guy insanely overpowered Atlantean weapons. Like, he gives, what'd you call him? Black
Manta is his name.
Yeah, he gives Black Manta this gun. Black Manta shoots it, and it blows up an entire fucking mountain all the way in the distance. And so I'm thinking... Black Man is clearly the main bad guy now. He's gonna kick Aquaman's ass. I have no idea how Aquaman will possibly survive this, but I'm saying, hey, you know what? Maybe the movie will surprise me. It was dumb as shit. Like, this guy has plasma that can melt the shit out of Aquaman, and he somehow completely not only fails to even leave a reasonable mark on Aquaman, but Aquaman is able to just throw him off a cliff. And you just watch Black Manta flail just miserably, his head constantly getting smashed into rocks. And then he just falls into the water.
Okay.
And I'm like, that was impressively pathetic. Like, you had to go through a lot of effort to fuck up that badly.
I guess, yeah.
And listen, the fight scenes were okay. Like, you could see the action, and it was easy to follow. Which was nice, but it was usually stupid. Like, Amber Heard had water powers, and she could pull water out of people very slowly, but at one point she was in a shop that had a lot of alcohol bottles, and she just, I guess, pulled the alcohol out of the bottles to kill people with icicle alcohol. And I'm like, well, that's not just the water, there's also alcohol there, so... what, is that a thing? But even if it is a thing, you could argue that's cool. She was really resourceful. But when someone dies from like icicle pops, like made out of wine, it feels a little stupid.
A little bit.
Yeah. There was one scene where you had genuinely really cool monsters that were terrifying to look at, and they attacked Aquaman's ship. And it was actually a pretty damn good scene. But I can't help but think, does this happen regularly? Because these creatures were revealed to be creatures that were of the aqua worlds, I guess I'll call it, of the Atlantean kingdoms or whatever. And I don't think they knew that Aquaman was on that boat. So could this, in theory, happen to regular people? And wouldn't that make it so Atlantis was discovered? And I thought Atlantis was supposed to be a secret place. So if they just have these monsters that are going off attacking random ships, I feel like it's going to be really easy to eventually trace that back to Atlantis. So that whole action sequence, if you think about it a little too long, it starts to become a little weird. But in case you're wondering if the final battle is any good, it's really not. It's okay, but Aquaman just does a special spinny trick that Willem Dafoe said, one day you'll be able to do this when you're good enough. And so Aquaman does the spinny trick with his special trident, and you see Willem Dafoe's face like, ah. And
What, like Yoda in Star Wars?
no, he's supposed to have this triumphant smile, but he's clearly just having a triumphant smile while also thinking, I don't want to be here right now. So it's kind of fucking amazing the way it all played out. And the evil brother was just defeated pretty easily because I think everyone just went, hey, Aquaman's king because he's got the trident, so he's the king now, okay? The evil brother was like, no! And that was basically it.
I wish there was more with Black Manta, because in the comics, he's the arch enemy of Aquaman, pretty much.
Well, at the very end, it turned out he survived.
Okay.
And he throws a knife at a picture of Aquaman and goes, I gotta get him.
Oh, all right.
So, I mean, after that mess of a movie, if you're ready for that, like, I was just pissed off because I'm going, he was clearly the main bad guy of this movie. The movie didn't acknowledge it, but in terms of his powers, he should have been.
Yeah.
And now you're telling me I have to wait until a sequel that might not even happen? Fucking thank you.
It's like in the second movie, he shows up only to be replaced by a less interesting villain again.
I could see that happening.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Aquaman did some things right, but I feel like it did a lot of things wrong.
I believe it.
So not a great movie.
It was also interesting that James Wan directed it, who did Insidious and some of the Saw movies. I know directors obviously venture outside their normal genres, but this just didn't, like, he has like a certain style in those movies, and I was hoping I'd hear like some unique stylistic things going on in this, but it doesn't seem like there's anything all that unique going on.
Did he ever do action movies?
Not really, no. This might be his first.
Well, I mean, the action was good. The writing was not.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess in terms of directing, it was pretty good. You could follow it easily enough. There were some decent visual choices, but the writing totally failed this movie.
Jason Momoa also seemed kind of corny.
Listen, I was fine with him as Aquaman. People have said his acting range is limited, and that's probably true, but I don't know.
Better than Henry Cavill.
You're setting a low bar here.
Okay.
I don't know. I also have not seen Henry Cavill outside of
Mission Impossible and Superman.
Oh, I thought you were just referring to the DC universe.
Well, either.
I don't know. It was fine. I mean, honestly, it's weird, but I feel like there wasn't that much Aquaman in Aquaman. I mean, He was the character that had the most screen time. I guess there just wasn't much to him.
No.
He occasionally was kind of like a bro. Yeah. And that's my impression, I guess.
Okay.
But I don't know. It just kind of felt like in the movie things just kind of happened and he was at the center of it. But I don't know. Wow, he just might have been a really unmemorable character, I guess.
I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. There wasn't much to him.
You know, now that I think about it, I think most of Justice League actors are pretty bland. Even in Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot didn't do anything all that special or exciting acting-wise, so I don't know.
Yeah. Sounds like DC is really on the right track.
Yep.
What is their next superhero movie after this?
Shazam, which I'm actually kind of looking forward to. That does look kind of good.
Does that count? Really?
Yeah.
Is that...
It's still in the DC universe.
Is it supposed to be in the same universe as Aquaman?
Yeah, he is a part of the Justice League, technically. He's
wow.
not as big a part.
That's going to be embarrassing, though, because if Shazam winds up being the great DC movie, what would it be like having Shazam lead the Justice League? Because that's essentially what would have to happen. If everyone loves Shazam more than any of the other superheroes, Shazam. Because Shazam is supposed to, more or less, I don't know Shazam that well.
He's a kid.
I get the impression he's sort of a parody of superheroes.
Kinda.
So having a parody of superheroes be your main flagship superhero for your serious cinematic universe about superheroes. Oh, that's so sad.
And also, they can't really have a cinematic universe now because Henry Cavill won't be playing Superman, and Ben Affleck probably won't be playing Batman again.
Yeah, what the fuck happened there?
It's just a lot of bad marketing decisions and, casting choices, and I don't know, a lot of shit went wrong.
I thought they were working on a solo Batman movie.
Maybe they still are, but Ben Affleck looks like he's either on the way out or he's really not happy with how things are going.
Didn't he start off being the director of it?
Yeah.
Wow.
It just went that bad.
I almost feel bad for DC.
Me too.
I wish them well. And I guess they're vaguely on the right track, but they're really not.
No.
Oh man, I feel bad.
Yeah.
DC, I'm sorry. I hope I can't even hope Shazam is good because that'll if it is, it's like a lose-lose for them. They need one of their serious superheroes to be good.
I mean, I think Shazam is serious.
If he's a parody of superheroes, then it doesn't really work.
A little kid who's imbued with superhuman strength and takes on an adult form, so it's not entirely a parody. It's a bit unique.
It feels like a parody, though.
I see what you mean, but yeah, I guess we'll see.
And maybe the movie will prove me wrong, but I don't know. Aquaman, I don't know that I ever could have anticipated the live-action Aquaman movie would happen. I definitely wouldn't have guessed that it would turn out like this, but this is the Aquaman movie we have, and I'm gonna give it a hug and pat it on the back. Good job, you exist.
Okay.
Anyway, that's it. We're done with December movies. All done. We're done with the 2018 movies, except we still got a couple grab bags left of 2018 movies.
Well, we're nearly there. We're at the finish line nearly.
But we're done with movies for now, which is great because there's actually something that I have saved until the end of the podcast. And I'm really excited about it. Nick knows what I'm talking about. I know sometimes we'll just talk about band stuff at the end of the podcast, but this is an event. This is an actual thing.
It's a big deal.
And it's technically related to this podcast because we have put out on this podcast a couple times now that we were looking for somebody that could officially design a social media package, essentially, for the Blinkity Bloop band, which is called Blinkity Bloop. I'm just specifying in this case. Should be obvious what we're talking about, though.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was something that we really went to great, somewhat uncomfortable lengths in order to try to procure for ourselves. Nick and I are not really familiar with making Facebook pages or special band Twitter accounts or anything like that.
Right. We just need someone to kind of handle our online PR.
Exactly. And be able to make social media for the band. Take us into the 21st century. And really, I think it would significantly help the band and its image. And I am so excited to announce that we actually did have somebody come through and create a package for us. And I have the email right now that has the links to these things. It's a Facebook page and it's a Twitter page. I think that's what it's called.
Did you open it yet?
No, because I wanted to do a live reaction. I thought it would be really fun to just see what our reactions are like.
Oh, wow.
And I have to owe it to Hi Guy, believe it or not. This is someone that I sort of ragged on the podcast, and I do apologize for that in hindsight. This person did wind up getting back to me, and essentially we talked and they were happy to help out Blinkity Bloop.
Who would have guessed?
So I have my laptop, and we're just gonna do a live reaction.
I'm nervous
this is gonna be
and
fucking
excited.
great.
Oh, wow.
All right, hold on. Okay, I've got both links open.
Okay.
And what?
What's the verdict?
Are you fucking kidding me?
What?
You're fucking kidding me.
What's going on?
No, okay, apparently that's not a fucking mistake. So guess what, Nick?
What?
This Facebook page and this Twitter page, I'm looking at both of them, they're not for the fucking band.
What else would it be for?
This fucking podcast.
What the fuck? We already fucking have
I
a
fucking
podcast
know.
page.
How do you fuck this up?
What was he thinking?
How do you fuck this up?
I knew we couldn't trust Hyde.
We
fucking
needed
asshole.
a
God damn
fucking social media package for Blinkity Bloop.
Why would he do this to us?
Makes it for the fucking podcast, which already has a fucking page for Twitter and Facebook, and now we have two? This is such bullshit. We needed one for the band. How do you fuck this up? It's so simple. How did this happen?
I don't understand. It's the band, not the fucking podcast.
Apparently, there's only the podcast. That's all people care about. When they hear Blinkity Bloop, it's just gonna be the fucking podcast from now until eternity, because who gives a shit about Blinkity Bloop the band, which is the only Blinkity Bloop that fucking matters?
Exactly.
Who gives a shit about this fucking movie podcast?
No one fucking listens to it anyway.
This is so disappointing. This was supposed to take the band to the next level, and now this fuck made such a shitty mistake.
I don't know how he could misinterpret it. Is he, like, playing a prank on us or something? Some sick fucking joke?
What the fuck? What the fuck? What are we? Is this ever gonna happen for us? Is this
It
fucking...
has to.
This band needs to fucking go somewhere, and it's like every turn we're being fucking held back.
Oh my god, I'm at a fucking loss right now.
We needed this. I'm gonna report these pages he made. I'm not even gonna tell him to change them because I don't trust him anymore.
No, he can't be trusted. He's a fucking rat. For all we know, he's working for some rival band like Hedgehog Towels.
Sorry. I am so concerned, I think, is my main feeling right now.
This is the opposite of the direction I expected this to go in, and I'm so fucking confused and angry.
Yeah.
God damn it.
I guess we're just gonna have to work even harder to make the band a thing.
Fuck.
I don't even want to do the Fissure Mist Media plug.
No, I don't blame you, but...
Fissure Mist Media takes care of your movies. The audio specifically.
Yeah.
Yes, Fissure Mist Media is technically, they do audio for everything that you would do audio for normally, but we're here emphasizing that they do movies because they clearly want the business of big movie places.
That's what they care about. They don't give a shit about little fucking podcaster bands like us.
No, they don't.